Hi Flosstube, I'm Rachel Stitchy Rach here on Flosstube and also on Instagram. It is Thursday the 24th of June and this is a YouTube channel about cross stitch because I like cross stitch. Welcome everyone, welcome back if you are a returning viewer, thank you for coming back again, and if you are new I hope you'll hang around and have a look at some of my cross stitch and see if it's something you like. As always, really appreciative of all your comments and likes and subscribes. Thank you for watching. So, how have you all been? It's been a funny old week here in Kent. It's been heavy rain and then bright sunshine and heavy rain and bright sunshine. We're in a bright sunshine phase right now. So after this, I'm going to go out, you guessed it, take the dog for a walk. And then I have got lots of things I need to get on with in the garden. So that is my plan for today. Life-wise, it's been a really good week. Our school have decided that they can go ahead with sports days. I know not all schools are doing that, but it does mean I have 3 sports days to go to this week. I've done 2 and I've got another one tomorrow. And it's just been really fantastic just to go and watch my children and just feel part of school life again, because I haven't felt like that for a long time. And I think the parents at our school are really appreciative that school have found a way to make sports days go ahead. So I've done 1 in the pouring rain, I've done 1 in the bright sunshine, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for tomorrow because the forecast is a bit mixed. So, but it's nice. It's just good to get back to something approaching normal. So happy with that. Right, in terms of stitching, it's been a funny old stitching week. And I think what we're going to find out during this film is that I am easily distracted and easily led when it comes to stitching. And the stitching goals, I'm not very accountable for them. Anyway, there we go. So I'll show you what I've got. I have brought an old FFO to show you, and that's a fully finished object or a finally flipping over, depending on your point of view. So I will show that to you. But I don't have any finishes or FFOs in my stitching this week. But I have 3 whips to show you when we get to that point. So I'll start with the old fully finished object or FFO. Okay, here we go. So this is what I brought to show you this week. And the reason I picked this one is that this, to me, is not my most successful stitch ever. And a few reasons for that. So first of all, this was a freebie by Teresa Weinberg. I think that's how you say it. I will link her website below. I don't know if you can get it as a freebie anymore. If I can find it, I will link it. But I picked this up off a Facebook group that she posted a picture of it too. So if it's on her website, I will link it, but otherwise I'll just generally link her website. And she has lots of gorgeous Quaker and band samplers and things like that. So her website's well worth going and having a look at. But this was a freebie that I picked up, I think in 2018. Oh yes, I must correct. Last week when I showed my FFO, I said that Needles Dance had been a 2018 market release and I'd stitched it in 2019. It was a 2019 market release and it was my New Year, New Start in 2020 and I finished it in 2020. So just to correct that. Right, back to this one. So I did stitch this in 2018. So it was a freebie from a Facebook group in 2018. And I stitched it for my husband for our wedding anniversary. Now, the reason I think it's not successful is 2 reasons. So you can't really see from back here, but if you look up close, there is a lot of detail in that heart. There's lots of flowers and swirls and things. And this was my first time using heavily variegated thread. And I didn't really realise that if you are not careful on a very detailed pattern with variegated thread, all you end up seeing is the thread and none of the pattern. So if you are using a heavily variegated thread on quite an intricate pattern, you do need to cut it so that you don't lose the detailing of the pattern. And I think if I was to do this now, what I might do would be to pick out the colours in this thread, which is a beautiful thread, and stitch some of the motifs in a block of colour, and then use the variegated thread for the swirls. Does that make sense? So you'd see the beautiful variegation in bits of the scroll work, but then you wouldn't lose the detailing on the flowers and the berries. So that's the first reason I don't think it's massively successful, is that I don't think I matched the thread to the project, and I think being the first time I'd used a heavily variegated thread, I didn't really understand what would happen. And the second reason it's not my most successful finish is because it's stitched 1/1 on 28 count even weave, which is fine, and lots of people love stitching 1/1. I don't. This is the only project I have ever stitched 1/1, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. I don't make loads of mistakes, but we all make mistakes in our stitching. Frogging on 28 count is a complete nightmare if you're stitching over one. You really have to get a seam ripper in, and you have to be so careful not to rip the fabric, and yeah, it is not for me. I'd stitch a little bit of 1/1 on a pattern, but I would never now look at a pattern and be like, yay, I'm going to stitch that 1/1. It's fine to not like stitching 1/1. This is meant to be relaxing, and stitching 1/1 for me isn't relaxing. Fair play to all of those of you who enjoy that, but I don't. So I won't be doing it. I'm happy stitching on really small count fabric. I'm happy stitching on 40 count. I'll do a bit of 46. I quite like 36, but 1/1 is just not my jam. It's just not my jam. However, on the plus side, this does hang in our dressing room. It's where I hang quite a few things I've stitched for my husband for Valentine's Days and wedding anniversaries. And I think it's a really pretty pattern. The fabric is a 28 count even weave from Lakeside Needlecraft, which I think was in the colour Stone. I think it's a Fabric Flare fabric. And the thread, which is a beautiful thread, I just didn't utilise it in the right way. I think you can kind of see the pattern there. Is a Thread Pickers silk. I think it's called Love and Peace, and I will link Thread Pickers below as well. But I thought I would show you something that I feel was unsuccessful, because I think it's important to show that it's okay to experiment, and it's okay to get the experiment wrong sometimes. And I still have a really beautiful thing that I gave to my husband, and I really learned a lot from the process of stitching it. So I don't think it's ever wasted, but you can be unsuccessful and still have something lovely and learn things from it. So I hope that kind of helps explain why I picked this one. It's framed in just a DMC hoop. These floral hoops you can buy. I think they're quite widely available from lots of stitching sites. And I just stitched a piece of felt on the back. I stitch my felt. So how I frame in a hoop is I lace the stitching to the smaller hoop, and then I cut my felt in a circle using the outside of the big hoop as my template. And then before I put the hoop on, I stitch the felt under where the hoop is going to sit, so you can't see the stitching. But this piece of felt is stitched onto this piece of stitching, but the joint is just under the hoop. And I find that looks really neat and tidy, and you can still do your hoop up and get a good finish. And obviously it doesn't affect the front bit because that's laced on, so you're not using the hoop for tension, you're lacing it. Hope that makes sense. So that is my FFO, my old FFO for this week. And we're 10 minutes in and I haven't shown you any of my this week's stitching yet. Okay, so this week's stitching, as I say, I haven't got any finishes or FFOs, but I have 3 whips to show you. So the first one is my Lucy Heaton's Bouncing Babies ABC. I say this every week. This is a PDF download. It is available on her website, which I will link below. It's charted to be stitched on an Afghan, but I am just stitching it on a piece of linen as a sampler. So for those of you that have been here before, you will know that I said in June I wanted to have a semi-monogamous June and mainly focus on this piece. Yeah, that hasn't happened. So of the 23 stitching days so far in June, because I haven't stitched yet today, I have stitched on this piece for 10 days, and 13 days I have stitched on other things. So if that was your marriage, you wouldn't be really very pleased with that level of monogamy, would you? Never mind. I will show you where I am. I am not where I hoped I would be, but it's been a bit of a funny week in terms of stitching, so never mind. It's just stitching. It'll be done when it's done. So here is where I am. I am still on my N is for night square. I have made good progress from when I last saw you. This motif in the middle is now pretty much complete. As you can see, there's a little bit of white there at the bottom, and that is because I have run out of that thread. It's a DMC. I have it on order with Lakeside Needlecraft, and it should be here in the next 24 to 48 hours, so I'll get that little bit finished. I had a few DMCs I was running quite low on. I hadn't realised I was running so low on that one. Anyway, that I run out, so I'm just waiting for the thread to come. And then all I've got left to do on this block is S is for night. I have to go out this evening, so I doubt it'll be finished today, but I think that square will be finished tomorrow. And then my plan is to move down onto S's for shoes and work on that until the end of the month, hopefully in a more monogamous fashion than I have managed for the other 23 days of the month. So if I move this really close up to the camera, I love the shading in this. I think the N is for night may be my favourite square, actually. I think it's beautiful. I think the way the shading comes out from the moon is really pretty. So that's where I am on that. Not as far forward as I hoped to be honest, particularly given that I had some of this square done before June even started. I was hoping to finish 3 squares in June. That is not going to happen. If I finish 2 now at this stage, I think I will have done really well. So that's where I am. It's not where I wanted to be, but it's where I am, and we are moving forward and making progress. So I think you're going to see a lot more of this one this year. Okay. And then the other thing I was working on last week when I saw you and continued to work on was my Lizzie Kate Dear Santa, I've been good, and I am doing the larger piece. So I should say the Bouncing Baby alphabet that I just shown you is stitched on 36 count linen, just white linen by Zweigart, and with all the called for DMC. Sorry. So back to the Lizzie Kate. I'm stitching the big piece, and this was my out and about stitching. So the stitching I do, for those of you that are new, when I am waiting for my children at school pickup, or when they're at a club, or when they're at swimming, any of those things, I take a piece of stitching and try and get some progress. So this is where I am. I cannot remember for the life of me where I was when I showed it to you last week. Was I stitching that candy cane? I think I might have been stitching that candy cane. And I think since then I've done the forget it, I'll buy, and the M. I think that's where I was. I'm stitching this on a 28 count off-white even weave from my stash. It's a fabric flare, but I'm afraid I can't tell you what colour it is, because it was just, that's all I had in my stash and it wasn't labelled. And I'm stitching it in the called for DMC conversion on the chart. I've made a few little modifications here and there, but in general, that's what I'm doing, and that is where I am. I would like to get this piece finished before my children break up for the summer, because once they have broken up for the summer, all the clubs and school pickup and whatnot stops, and there isn't a lot of out and about stitching. So I would really like to get it done by then, and I think that's doable. So I've got the Y on my to finish, these presents in the tree down here, own presents, and a few lights on this string of lights, and I think that's it then. So I feel that is a doable goal to get that finished in the next couple of weeks. So that's that one. And I would be further ahead with that, but I said, didn't I, that I'm easily led and easily distracted. Well, so on Sunday, Michelle Bendy Stitchy and Garrett Coffee Stitcher started the Quaker Cryptid Sal, and these are Quirky Quakers by Darling and Whimsy Designs, and she has a whole series of these, and they're really cute and they're quite quick stitches. So I was like, I'm going to jump on that bandwagon, because easily led, no self-control, not goal orientated, just do it. So I decided I was going to start with this unicorn, because one of my children is unicorn obsessed at the moment. I thought, I'll knock that out. I'll knock it out on Sunday, which was the day the sale started. And then I didn't knock it out on Sunday. And then I thought, oh, well, it's all right. It'll be finished by my Flosstube on Thursday. Nope. So it is still a whip. It's getting there. I think I'll finish it in the next couple of days. Maybe you'll even have an FFO next week. That'd be exciting, wouldn't it? So this is where I am. So I am nearly there. I've got the unicorn to finish, and there's one more kind of Quakery motif inside the medallion, but all the medallion borders finished and whatnot. So I'm stitching this with none of the called for. The fab thing about these is they're great ways to use up threads and fabric you have in your stash, because they're really little, so you don't need huge amounts of thread, and they're just really good fun and cute to display. So that's where the unicorn is. I'm stitching this on a 32 count Opal Belfast in the colourway, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, Khione, 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 by Chromatic Alchemy Fabric. And can you see the spark? I don't know if the sparkle's really showing. I don't stitch on opalescent fabric a lot. It's not generally my thing. The reason being is that I want my stitching to be the star of the show, and I want the fabric to complement the stitching. I don't want the fabric to be the main event. Even when they're beautiful hand-dyed fabrics, I want the stitching to be the main event, and I want the fabric to complement that. And I feel often that opalescent fabric can detract from the stitching. Not always, but I think it has to be used quite wisely, in my opinion. That's not right or wrong, it's just my opinion. So you won't see a lot of opalescent fabric. That's not to say I never use it. So the Barbara Anna light piece that I showed you in my Whip Parade, and it's one of my mania pieces, because I think it looks like a night sky. I'm using opalescent fabric for that because I think then it looks like the stars. Does that make sense? So I don't feel it's detracting from the stitching. And obviously when you're stitching a unicorn, well, you can have some sparkle with a unicorn. But generally, as I say, I don't stitch with opalescent fabric. And what I do find, I don't know if it's this dye, but I use a lot of chromatic alchemy fabric, and I've never found it before. So I think it might be the opalescent, is that I feel like it makes the fabric really dry. Does that make sense? I don't know if it's because, I assume it's some kind of plastic, the opalescent, that's weaved in, and I just feel it makes, the fabric feel a lot drier than a non-opalescent linen. Does anyone know what I mean, or am I just speaking rubbish? Anyway, that's what I think. So yeah, not a massive fan of the feel of opalescent fabric. I don't think it's the dye. I think it's the actual fabric itself. Anyway, waffling. So that's the unicorn. The fabric, as I've said, is 32 count opalescent Keone by Chromatic Alchemy, and then I am stitching it with the dark purple is Purple Rain by Classic Colour, not Classic Colour, it's Colour and Cotton, apologies. Purple Rain by Colour and Cotton. And the variegated kind of peachy, pinky purple, did you hear my tummy then? Just rumbled. Pinky purple that the unicorn and this medallion here is stitched in. I don't know if they're shown very well because of the light. Is Bambino, and that is by Classic Colourworks. But I think there you can see it, that it's got this kind of peachy, lilac-y variegation. I think that looks really cool on the unicorn. So that is my colour combo, and there's not much left to do. The called for is I think it's Hyacinth. The called for is Classic Colourworks Little Pink Peony and Gentle Arts Hyacinth. But I didn't have either of those in my stash. So, as I say, these are great stash busters just to use up stuff you have in your stash. So hopefully I'll have a finish, or maybe even an FFO on that for you next week. And Garrett and Michelle, completely blaming you for totally disrupting all my stitching plans. But it's good fun, and you know, it's a hobby, not a job. We can do what we want, when we want, because it's a hobby, not a job. So that's all my stitching this week. I haven't worked on that much, as you can see. As I say, it hasn't been a stellar stitching week. 1 second. Right, I'm at 24 minutes now, and I have quite a bit of haul to show you, so I better crack on. So haul, I'll show you my direct stitching haul first, and then I have some stitching adjacent haul. So it's not directly stitching, but it's stitching adjacent. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So, first thing first. So obviously so my first bit of haul was those mythical creature Quakers from Darling and Whimsy Designs. the Yeti, the Nessie. Can't find it now. Where's it gone? Sorry, I've stuck it back in the bag. Yes, this was the first piece of haul, really. The Yeti, the unicorn, and the Nessie. Not a Yeti, a Bigfoot, but there is a colour conversion where you can stitch this dude in white to make him a Yeti. So there you go. So that was the first bit. And obviously, while I was there, you have to have a look around, don't you? And I think I said I'm stitching the unicorn for one of my children who is currently obsessed with unicorns. And therefore, while I was there, as luck would have it, she also has quirky Quakers that are my other two children's favourite animals. So one of my children loves ladybirds. We call them ladybirds, not ladybugs here in the UK. Ladybird. So I bought the ladybug quirky Quaker, or ladybird, for one of my children. And then a sheep is my other child's favourite. So bought that one as well. And as I say, as they're quick stitches, there is a chance that my children might actually get those. And then the final thing I bought while I was on the Darling and Whimsy Etsy page was the HF 1916 sampler. And I've liked this one for quite a while, and it just seemed a good opportunity to go, oh, my tummy's rumbling again, to go and grab it. So did all that. So they were my first bits of haul. Then I also went on eBay and won ABC Tapestry by Rosewood Manor. Fab. It is a second-hand copy. It's got a slight bit of sun damage down there, as you can see, but the chart inside is absolutely pristine, and I love that. I think it is fab. I like big alphabets, what can I say? And on the back you can see in a little more detail. I don't know if I'll ever stitch this as a full alphabet because it is massive, and I've already got one massive alphabet on the go. But I do love the squares, and I love the little motifs that match the letter of the alphabet. And what, I don't know if I can get it to show you, what you can't see very clearly from the pattern, I don't think it will show, is that the background of each of these squares is full of different styles of that letter. So for example, the A square has, the whole background of the square is full of backstitched letter A's. So sorry about that. I'm not quite sure where I got to, but as I was saying, it's just a fabulous resource for backstitched letters. And I picked this up, it is still in print, I think you can still buy it. I picked my copy up on eBay. I actually got it for quite a good price, but yeah, fabulous resource for backstitching, for backstitched letters and fonts, even if you don't want to stitch the whole chart. Obviously you could just stitch individual letters as well for people. So yes, very pleased with that. I've been thinking of that one for a while. Right, stitching adjacent haul. What is stitching adjacent haul? Well, all will become clear. So the first thing I bought was some Rit dye. I think I mentioned last week that I was going to have a go at dyeing some fabric. I haven't bought the fabric yet, but I have bought the Rit dye. I had to do an Amazon order, and so I bought some Rit from Amazon. So I bought caramel, pearl grey, cocoa brown, tan, and taupe. So as you guessed, I'm going to have a go at trying to dye some kind of prim and sampler type fabrics, because I have a few samplers in my stash that I'd like to get going on now. And while I do have some prim fabric in my stash, actually a lot of my stash is quite colourful fabric. So a lot of the fabric clubs I used to be a member of have quite colourful and less primitive fabric. Excuse me. Okay, so that's the first thing. So I'm looking forward to having a go at that and getting to use some of that. I've been watching some YouTube tutorials. And then this weekend there was a antiques fair at Kent Showground, and I went there with my friend. So I am not a great antique shopper in the sense that I just don't have a lot of vision, to be honest, in terms of dressing and what will look nice. But my friend I went with is an interior designer, so she she can help me a little bit and just kind of prod me in the right direction. But I bought a few things for kind of cross-stitch display. So the first thing I picked up was a super tiered tray. It needs a bit of a clean up. It's silver plate and it's a bit mucky inside, so I need to get a silver polishing cloth on it. But I thought that would be great. I love seeing everyone's tiered trays all dressed with their smalls. I do not, however, have a lot of smalls, so please spam me with your favourite smalls in the comments. They can be seasonal or all year round, but I need things I can stitch to put in my tiered tray. So spam me with the best smalls out there so that I can get stitching. So that's the first thing. Got this for £12. £12. Then I also picked up a old bobbin inspired by Michelle from Mama Loves You GB, who's got some fabulous old bobbins on the display behind her. I haven't decided if I'll use this just for as is display or if I will try and finish some stitching on it. But yeah, so I've got an old bobbin. And then, which I thought could help decorate my tiered tray, I got some small old bobbins as well. I wouldn't say they're old, I've just thrown one of them on the floor. But they are all wooden and they're all different shapes. And I thought they would be quite fun to help dress my tiered tray with some bits and pieces. And the colours are all, there's a little one, are all fairly complementary as well, which I liked. The one I threw on the floor is quite a nice lighter grey blue. So I thought those were fun. I could use those to help display my stitching. As I said, I'm not the greatest with an eye, but I'm trying. So, done all that. Plans. I think I kind of covered plans during my whips. So the 3 things I showed you in my whips are my plans for this week. I want to get that Quirky Quaker finished. I want the Lizzie Kate, some really good progress on that and get that closer to a finish. And I want to get that Night Square finished on the alphabet and move on to the S square. So they're my plans for the coming week. And I think that's all I've got for you today. So I hope you enjoyed coming and hanging out and looking at my stitching and my haul. As always, thank you for all the comments and the likes and the subscribes. I really appreciate everyone coming along and watching and the comments you leave. If you'd like to see more about the Quaker Cryptid sale, head over to Michelle Bendy or Garrett Coffee Stitcher and go and check out Darling and Whimsy's Designs Etsy page, which I will link below. And that's all I've got. So, thanks for watching. Please comment below and spam me your smalls. And in the meantime, have a good week, Stitchers. Bye!